Hola, bienvenidos al podcast de Mente Sucia. Sorry, let me switch to English. Welcome to the Dirty Mind Podcast. My name is Dirt, and this is the Dirty Mind Podcast. Today we're talking about Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024, basically my most anticipated game of the year, and how perfect it was, how perfect the launch was, how perfect the game is now, and all of the details as to the whereabouts, as to the reasons therein, thereof, and therefore. But before we get into all that, it's time for everybody's favorite segment, Old News.
I got nothing new for you.
Guess what, all you Dragonborn out there? Skyrim is finally getting a remaster for the first time. Moving on up from the PS3 to the PS4, we're getting a remaster that's going to be called the Special Edition. It's so special. Just like you. You're so special. My goodness. Let's take that artwork you made with colored pencil and put it right on the fridge. And then we're going to put a calendar and put that right over top of it, right after you leave the room. But yeah, this remaster is going to be great because it signals a good future for Skyrim. I think it's a good omen for what is to come. The developers Bethesda is going to be supporting it and making new content, I assume, for years to come. So this special edition is basically going to be Skyrim, but it's going to look so much prettier. You know how when you played Skyrim, it wasn't like the definitive graphics that you would hope for. It wasn't bad by any means, but it wasn't pushing the envelope. It was just like, yeah, this is good. This is good for the time period. Well, moving on and looking back, it's aged a little bit, right? It's aged a wee smidge. So they're just going to improve it a little bit. There's going to be God rays. There's going to be... It's going to be better. Skyrim is going to be better. Okay, it's going to look better. They're adding a bunch of stuff. There's going to be God rays. There's going to be a whole lot of stuff. It's going to, and also, I should probably mention this because it was announced. It's going to be full price. Okay, because you are getting it on a new platform. So if you had it on the PlayStation 3 and now you have the PlayStation Quattro, it's a new game, right? The PS4 is not backwards compatible, and you wouldn't want it to be. You want the new one. You want the remastered one, okay? Because it's so much better. There's going to be God rays. So get your hands on the PlayStation 4 and Xbox equivalent. I don't know what it's called these days. The Skyrim, Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. If you've never heard of it, it's a pretty good game. It's high quality RPG, and it's going to be called the Special Edition. It's not going to be called the remaster. Keep an eye out for that. Make sure you get it because you need to do everything you can to support Bethesda, the developers, because they're going to need some help. I think because they're a small company. They're going to need to get some money out of us, and they deserve it. Yeah, so keep an eye out for that. And good job being born a dragon. Welcome back to the show. So my name is Dirt. I think I already did that, but just in case you forgot, my name's Dirt. And we're going to be talking about Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. So to break down some of the things that were not so incredible about the launch and the current state of Flight Sim 2024, we're just going to break it into a few different categories. So the first and foremost, most obvious one is trouble loading in. So what happened there? When I first loaded into the game, I downloaded it, and it was only, 11 gigabytes on Steam? And I was like, what's going on? This is strange. I thought it was supposed to be 50 gigabytes, which was already way lower than you would expect. because they were going to be relying on cloud servers and all that, which is strange because I didn't think clouds were real. But it's neither here nor there. And I loaded up, and it did take a while. It took around 32 minutes, I believe. I had my stopwatch going. And once it got fully loaded in, I was able to do whatever I wanted. And I didn't have any issue after that. The problem was I loaded in right before the big wave. So I was on it, okay? It was 11:01. I remember looking. It was 11:01, and the game launched at 11 o'clock my time. And I got it, and it was downloading, and I launched it immediately. And remember, 11 gigabytes, that's not a lot these days. Back in 1998, 11 gigabytes was unheard of. If you had something that was 11 gigabytes, that was an entire repository of bank-issued sandwiches. I don't know what they did back in 1998. I assume everything was, it was still in that weird transition period with the computers because there was still a lot of paper back then, and a lot of colored paper, I think, like construction paper, right? Where you got red, you got green, you got chartreuse, you got teal, you got aquamarine, you got maroon, you got indigo, you got naranja, which is Spanish for orange. The color orange, not anaranjado. Wait, hold on. Which one's which? Anaranjado and naranja. One of those is the fruit, and one of those is the color. Ah, gee whiz. Naranja? That sounds like the fruit. I'm not going to look it up. That's what I'm going to go with. Naranja. That seems like if you had anaranjado, you can't be using that in everyday conversation. But we all have orange juice constantly. Like orange juice, I feel like there's a reason you don't see advertising for orange juice all that often. I used to, but then they realized we need to pump the brakes on this. Like, hold on, hold the phone, hold the horses, hold the orange groves, because people's be buying way too many oranges. They're buying way too much orange juice. We are going to run out, okay? It's just such a popular drink. It's a popular food. Sometimes I love oranges and I love clementines and mandarins, but sometimes I'll really have a sweet tooth, I guess, for something sour, and I'll just have a lime, and I'll eat the lime like I would an orange or a lemon. I'll have a lemon like I would an orange. I love it. I love those super sour, citrusy flavors. Gimme, get in my tummy. I love those. And so, as I was saying, video games, Flight Simulator 2024, loaded in. Yeah, so it was, I was loading in and launching it before the big peak, before everybody was doing it. And not to sound like I'm a hipster or whatever, I know that term's kind of outdated, but somebody who is like, oh, I knew that band before they were cool, right? I launched Flight Simulator 2024 before everybody did. But it's true, I did. And so I closed it out because I had to do something else, came back, tried it again. Nope. Sorry. Too many humans, too many players jumping in at the same time. And that was not a good sight. But I didn't anticipate that, and I don't think for some reason I don't think anybody really did. Because you wouldn't think of a flight simulator as a game where it needs to be an always online experience, but because they were doing the cloud streaming for the textures, not just for multiplayer or new things, competition, or I don't know. What are the multiplayer options? To play together, to have challenges. There we go. That was the word I was thinking of. to have online challenges, leaderboards, stuff like that. That makes sense. But no, they're cloud streaming for the very game itself to be able to load terrain everywhere around the world so that you don't have to have 500 gigabytes sitting on your computer. And I get that, that's nice. That's nice. But they did not anticipate this insane amount of players to be loading in at the same time, and it crashed the system. And it took, it didn't take too long, relatively. It was probably 12 hours or so, 18 hours, we'll say. About 18 hours before it was fixed. And we haven't seen that problem again, probably because there's no way we're going to see that many people's trying to load in at the same time ever again. It was launch day. It was launch day. That's the peak. So what else contributed? Well, there was a lot of collaborations with third-party vendors, if you will. Now, when I say vendors, I'm not talking about like hot dog stands off the side of the road, pierogi food trucks. That's a real thing, by the way. I love pierogies, and getting it out of a truck is pretty great because the one thing I enjoy most about pierogies is their mobility. So to be able to have a pierogi in my pocket while I'm walking down the sidewalk, headed to an art gallery, that is true living. That makes me feel like $100. Oh, remember when $100 was a lot? Those were the days. Anywho, so all these third-party collaborations with the game itself, too. I know one in particular is for the wildlife. The flight sim developers themselves did not create the models and the animations for the wildlife. They are essentially borrowing them from, I forget the name of the other studio or the project that it was for, but it makes sense because you're building an entire world, literally the entire world, and if you want to have authenticity, it's nice to have some animals, but on top of everything else they have to do, they didn't want to have to also accurately model and animate hundreds of animals. No, they're going to get some other company that's already done it and be able to work together on that and make the most of their money and time. And that makes sense, I get it. But there were so many third-party collaborations. You look at the intro screen as it's loading up, and you don't have enough time. You have to load the game 15 times to be able to read all the different names, all the different studios and companies that collaborated together to make the game. There's just so many. I don't know what they're doing. Some of them, it's probably just like they made the dirt texture for Nevada, and another group, they worked on the trees in Nova Scotia or something. It's like, okay, great. Okay, wow. Look at that. Look at you all collaborating together, just making artwork with all of your technology. You guys are so fun and fancy free. Fun and fancy free. That phrase comes from, at least when I initially heard it, there was this really weird cartoon with Disney. It was Mickey Mouse, I believe, and Donald Duck, not Daffy Duck, Goofy. And there were these really strange live-action puppets and maybe some humans, I don't remember. The live-action puppets were the most creepy I had seen up to that point in my life. And what they did is they sort of went into a dream sequence, if you will, where it went all 2D, and then it became a Jack and the Beanstalk story, and then they went back to half live action. And Fun and Fancy Free, I believe, was like a song in that. Maybe it was the title of the movie. I don't know. It would be sort of like a fever dream if I watched it again. I wonder what that is about that age, that formative age when you're like upper single digits, I think. That's a time period where you're making memories. Sure, the memories are sticking. They're no longer like when you were 3 and 4 and the memories just fade so quickly. And it's like, where are the Christmas presents? And it's like, Christmas was yesterday. And you're like, no, I forgot all about it. Did I get any good Christmas presents? Well, they were all food and you ate them all. No, you didn't give me anything that could actually last for a while. Well, I got you an action figure, but once again, you ate it. Oh, no, I think I remember it being tasty. So when you have the single-digit upper single-digit number years, I think that's when you're making these memories, and they sit in your brain, and they stay there for a while. But they're not quite as refined as an adult memory, so they have a little leeway, if you will. And they're sort of fuzzy around the edges. It's like you've got a vignette in your view. If you don't know what a vignette is, from a rudimentary perspective, it's when you have a shadow on the outer corners and the outer edge of a photograph or a video. That's what a vignette is. I'm probably explaining this and everybody listening knows exactly what a vignette is, and now I'm just making it seem like I'm just pretentious. It's like, oh, they don't know what a vignette is. They probably don't even know what a photographic camera is. So I'll explain that, might as well. So a photographic camera is pretty cool. It's pretty nifty. Basically what it's doing is it's using glass and reflections to capture an image of the real world. It's looking and there's a lot of different cameras that do this in different ways, but it's looking at the light and it's capturing the light so that it can be imprinted either physically or digitally, so that, let's say the resolution of the camera, it's never this, but 1,000 by 1,000, just to keep it as a simple number. 1,000 pixels across. They're these little squares, itty bitty, the tiniest little squares. So just like imagine a thumbtack with the little, the needle at the end. Smaller than that, smaller than the end of that little needle. These little tiny pixels, they all get one color. Okay, and there can be a lot of different colors, or there can be only a few different colors. There could just be the difference between RGB, red, green, blue. But all these pixels, they create their own little color, and then when you zoom out, it looks exactly like the image you just saw, unless you're working with a camera that was from 2002, back when it was like the popular number for a phone camera was 1.3 megapixels. For a while, that's what you had. That was the best we got. Actually, I think 2002 is actually a little early. Even later than that. Let me see. It would have been like 2006, 2007. Even then, the cameras were 1.3 megapixels. Maybe you'd get one that was 2.0 megapixels, which, by the way, is not a lot of megapixels. And that equates to the resolution. It was pretty small. So the pixels were larger. It's not a good thing when the pixels are large. You want the pixels to be itty bitty, barely recognizable as being real and actually existing and taking up space on the earth. So yeah, that relates to what I was saying previously, because let's go to today's sponsor. Have you ever been sitting on a pond and noticed that there's not a whole lot of humans around and you're super hungry? Well, you should try our new patented human sound maker. This is a human sound maker that makes sounds that attract humans, specifically for ducks who want humans to give them some delicious, delicious foods. So this human sound maker makes a lot of different sounds, okay? There's a few different ones, and it's always random because you never know what type of human is around you and which sound in particular is really going to grasp their attention. So I'm just going to test it out for you right here live so you can get a perfect demo of what it's actually like.
Pumpkin spice latte?
So that was an example of one that attracts anyone who likes pumpkin spice lattes, which is the vast majority of humans if I've led to believe the truth. Don't quote that phrase. And there's more than just that. There's so many different ones that bring in all the different varieties of humans because, once again, you never know what type of human is going to happen to have a pack of cinnamon raisin bread in their back pocket. And there's humans everywhere, right? But not all of them are carrying food, and not all of them are close to the pond. So we have a few different sounds that are going to attract the humans. So here's another one.
Free Bluetooth headphones?
So that one's really good for anybody who's lost their Bluetooth headphones or wants to try out Bluetooth headphones. But that's going to be a lot of humans, and the one thing you need to remember is that you don't actually have a pair of free Bluetooth headphones unless you have some Bluetooth headphones that you're willing to, remove. So it's going to be up to you to, negotiate with that. And if they come up to you and they're like, "Are you the one who just made that sound, the free Bluetooth headphones thing?" And you're sitting there and your stomach is churning and you're sitting on the lake and you're like, "Yeah, but can I have some food first? We'll make it an even trade." And they're like, "Okay, yeah, I've got this pizza bagel. I'll toss that over to you." And you're like, "Oh, perfect." And then they toss it, you eat it, and then you just go right underwater. Don't feel bad about it. Humans got a lot of money. They can buy more pizza bagels. So that's just a couple examples of the human sound maker that can attract humans. Once again, this is only for ducks. If you're not a duck, you're not allowed to buy it. And it took us a long time to get that through the censors and the government to allow it. But it's sort of like, it's a special case, right? We need this to be in the hands of ducks, even though they don't have hands, but we need the ducks to be the ones who have it and no one else, because I think it could be too powerful. I probably shouldn't be saying this during the sponsored segment. This is more of a closed door conversation, but it's okay. The door is off the hinges. We'll all live. It's kind of a powerful device. That's why I think all the ducks who are even slightly interested, you need to get it. Order one right now before they're gone. They are in limited quantities, and there's a bunch of sounds on it. You gotta try it out. And if it doesn't work at first, keep trying. And we do have a number for returns. And if it sounds like the number that you're dialing for returns is actually a pizza shop in Milwaukee, I don't know what happened there. There's something weird with the numbers. It's not our fault. Just keep trying that number. I'm sure it'll work eventually. Okay, thanks. Oh, wow. Thank you to that sponsor. That sounds like a great purchase. So back to the topic at hand, Flight Simulator 2024. There's some other issues that have perpetuated past the loading times and all that. And I think one of the main, most irritating one for a lot of folk, myself included, are the bugs in career mode. So career mode is one of those things that was the big selling point, really, for this game, because there's plenty of simulators out there. There's plenty of flight simulators. You got X-Plane. You got the earlier flight sim models. You got the ones that are exclusively for VR. You got all the bus simulators, the mud runners, the driving, all that good stuff. Job simulator, that one was fun. But almost none of them have a career mode or anything similar to a career mode. And that was the big pull, the big piece of rope that the tiger was pulling on. And you want that rope just because the tiger was pulling on it. It's my rope now. Gotcha. You're in a cage and I'm not. Anywho, In the career mode, it's awesome because you get to plan where you want to go. It gives you structure finally. It makes you feel like you have some type of identity. It's sort of rudimentary, but you got the customization for your whole outfit. I of course went with this really nice pink button up. It was liberating. But the fact that the career mode is plagued with the most bugs is just super disappointing. Now, I haven't seen too many game-breaking bugs. Personally, maybe it's just that particular route I went down, or because I waited until a little bit later to play the career mode and they fixed some of the bugs. But in either way, the one thing I did notice was things looked worse almost immediately when I went to career mode, from the perspective that the plane I was using in career mode, which was quite often it was set in stone, I couldn't pick it, it didn't have a roof, and you could see straight through the floor and also the sides. Like if you opened just a little door for where you can put luggage, you could see straight through to the other side of the planet. And I don't think that was intentional. And I really don't know what was up with career mode in particular, why that didn't get the smooth finish that it deserved when it was probably the biggest driving factor behind sales, I assume. Like, everyone looking at getting a new game knows the graphics are more than likely going to be improved with newer entries, but it's features that bring you in, not slightly improved graphics. So it was going to be career mode. And when career mode has stuff like it spawns you in a place and says, hey, you need to do task number 3 on the list, and you're like, task number 3 already would have happened. I can't do task number 3. And they're like, well, sorry, you got to do task number 3, otherwise you're going to fail. And it's like, task number 3 is get the plane to lift off, and we're already at 5,000 feet. Buddy, I don't know what to tell you. You got to do task number 3. So things like that are kind of not great. But once again, for me, the main issue was having a plane that didn't look at all real, or maybe just not like any type of plane I ever done seen. And that's just disappointing. But once again, I don't know where the problem would have come from for career mode other than the potential fact that they didn't actually test career mode, or didn't do too much testing. Like they just went down specific routes and didn't test it after a certain point. A certain amount of third-party vendors got their hands on it. But beyond that, there are some odd UI choices, especially loading up your configuration for Free Flight. Free Flight is probably the absolute best, flawless, most desirable game mode in the game. But, there's it's kind of counterintuitive the way some of the things are set up, that you need to be able to set things up for your flight. And then there's some performance tweaks that are needed. For me, I don't think I've turned multiplayer on at all yet since day one. There's a lot of other settings that I went through. You gotta, depending on how much local space you have, you want to set your cache limit. There's a lot of things that are just required that don't necessarily need to be required, or you would think would not need to be required in other games. But yeah, this is just one of those special cases where you gotta be extra careful. It almost feels like a VR game. Now, obviously, it is a VR game because you can play it in VR. But what I mean is, like, a lot of VR games, you jump in and you have to spend the first 15 minutes just setting up the controls. You got to switch over from teleportation to being able to have full mobility, and you got the turn speed and the vignette on or off, when you're moving and sprinting, and what's your dominant hand, and how tall are you, and how much do you weigh, and what's your social security number, and how much is in your 401k, all that good stuff. It seems like that, but even more so because you don't really know what is going to be beneficial. You don't know for certain what's actually going to improve your performance, other than just completely dropping all of the visual quality. But even then, there's some other little hidden settings that you don't know can actually be super impactful. Now, I wish I could bestow upon thee some really exceptional secrets of, hey, make sure you press this button or you change this setting from purple to green. But I don't know. I don't think I have anything like that. You can go through some forums and there's probably more information. But you know what it's like here on the Dirty Mind podcast. It's less about information in terms of facts and rules and regulations and such, and it's more of just like general feelings, I think that's what we need more of. You got less of actually talking about things that are quantifiable, and we talk more about things that I just happen to be thinking about right on the edge of my mind at that very moment in time. That's what we need. I think that's something that's beneficial to the vast majority of gamers out there. So with that, I think it's time for the lucky color. Today's lucky color is such a funny one. It's called buff. Right? So silly. So silly. It's an interesting light yellow-brown. Very desaturated, but it's nice. It's pleasant. The hex code is DAA06D. That's DAA06D. It's interesting. I'm more interested in the name of it and how well it connects to the color itself. I don't know if I would have equated the color of buff to the word buff. I think if I was thinking of the word buff in terms of a color, I think I would go with like a very deep maroon, something like that. I don't know why that sticks out to me. A very reddish and deeper, or maybe a skin color, but just like a tan, like a really saturated tan color, because they use these spray tans when they're buff. I think that's a requirement. If you go to the gym and you reach a certain level of buffness, you need to reach a certain level of tanness. And if you don't have those levels leveled out, balanced correctly, I think you're going to fall into some legal action. So I don't know how well the color fits the name, but that's okay. There are worse sins out there, right? But beyond that, if you have any concerns or questions or comments about the color buff, about the human sound maker, about the Skyrim special edition, Flight Simulator 2024, all these things, let me know in the place where you can put words. And if you don't have anything, still just throw some random words together. Just go into your local dictionary and just find a few words. They don't have to have any particular connection to each other. Randomize the order and just send, I don't know, anywhere between 3 and 9 words. That's a good range, because I like to see words. I like to challenge myself to see if I can actually read. It's a good time. It's a good way to spend a Tuesday. So thank you for being here. And remember, we have more game options than anyone in history. So just take it slow. All right. You may feel compelled to try and play every single game. No. Be more selective. We need to be, as a society, more selective about what we play. And don't be afraid to say, I'm not interested in that game. I'm not interested in Marvel Rivals. I'm not interested in Fortnite OG. I'm not interested in, I think that's it. Everything else I'm interested in. Outer Wilds 2. That'll be fun. I haven't played the first one, but I have it. I kind of don't like that. I don't like that I have games that I want to play, but I haven't played them. But you got to take it slow, like Dirt said 38 seconds ago. You got to take it slow. If you're not going slow enough, you're not going to enjoy what you actually have. You're trying to speed through it. You're not actually going to soak in the messages that a lot of these games have. And I think the vast majority of them, if they have one message, it's this: don't ever betray someone if they're holding a gun behind you. And that kind of wraps it up, I think. It puts a little bow on it. So happy end of the year, everyone. And get ready for some new stuff in the new year. I forgot that I told myself a few hours ago that when I recorded the podcast, I was going to talk about some of the new stuff that's coming in the new year for the Dirt the Gamer experience. But I forgot. So, whoopsie. There's always next month. All right, love you.